A civic movement grounded in the Constitution. Patriotism explained. Not right, not left, but straight ahead.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Patriot Party, where truth, transparency, and constitutional principles come before politics. The Patriot Party movement is focused on re-empowering we the people, restoring accountability, and putting America first through honest conversations and real solutions. America first, not America only, because we lead by example.
Today we're joined by immigration attorney Mohammad Shair, whose personal journey gives him a rare perspective on legal immigration, opportunity, and what it truly means to become American. Mohammad, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Matt. So, as you said, I am an immigration attorney, and I'm here to talk about my journey to becoming a patriot and being happy to call myself that, right? And it starts with my grandma fleeing Palestine, going to Jordan for safety, and then my family seeking opportunity out of Jordan into the United States. I've had a long career, I'm still in the beginning of it, of an immigration attorney, working and supporting immigrants coming to the United States to invest, to be with their spouses and family, or people with high merit, people with extraordinary ability who want to lend their talents to the United States. And so that's the industry and field that I come from and the background that I have.
It's so commendable. I mean, legal immigration is such an important thing. A lot of people don't know this, but my great-grandmother, she immigrated from Lebanon in 1900 at 13 years old with $1 silver in her pocket and her 7-year-old sister in tow, and their names are on Ellis Island wall.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that is America. That's like the quintessential story of America. It's that beautiful immigrant journey.
It is beautiful. So let me ask you this. How has your family's experience shaped your understanding of what it truly means to become an American?
So my personal experience is that certain struggles are what attach you to your country, your land, right? So it's not just like the ideals of the United States and the civic engagement, but also the land that you're from. Like I love Tampa. I rep my city, and I think a lot of that comes through a certain struggle of an individual struggle where you have to understand that it's a part of your identity, but also you have to fight for that feeling of belonging, right? Because sometimes the closest people to you push you away or make you feel like you're not enough. So I feel like from those two parts, individually on your own, getting the confidence, but also fighting for that belonging amongst your community.
It's funny because I've found, and this is kind of why we say America first, not America only, because we lead by example. A lot of other countries, like our show, for example, we have as big of a fan base in India and Brazil as we do in America, because people are interested in what America's doing.
And that's that beacon of hope on the mountain ridge, right? We want to be that, and it's important that we recognize that that's what we are for the world. But it's also good for us to self-reflect. Who takes on that position for us on our own, like within the United States? Who is that canary in the coal mine? Who is that mirror that we can look at to see, are we doing our best ideals? Are we committed and fulfilling those ideals that we are projecting to the whole world and want to project internally as well?
And that's another thing. We have a graphic up, and we like to say the answers aren't in politics. The answers are in we the people. That's where the answers are in we the people, I believe. So let me ask you this.
No, so you bring up something interesting, right? Like that canary in the coal mine, that mirror is the people, right? Is our government and our politics reflecting the culture of the people and the sentiment of the people? And so that's how we can make sure that our government is doing what the people want. That's that mirror.
Well, and that's another graph. We put out a lot of graphics on social media, but another graphic, we say, even the perfect politician cannot fix a broken system in the broken system. If you're a mechanic driving a car, you got to get out of the car and work on it. You can't fix it while you're driving it.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. As both an immigration attorney and someone who has personally experienced the immigration process with your family, what are the biggest misconceptions Americans have about legal immigration today?
So, when it comes to legal immigration, I think the overall system, no one really knows what it is. Like, you have to be a technical attorney who specializes in immigration for you to actually know what the immigration system is, right? Any talking head, any news anchor, in reality, even the politicians, I would say, don't really know the nuances of the immigration system, be it the removal proceedings, the process that it takes, right? No one really knows or is informed enough about this. And I think that's like the biggest threat to the engagement, right? For the civic engagement, right? People don't know it enough. It's overly complicated. And I think that overcomplication is what lends itself for misunderstandings and confrontation.
And I don't think that's just in immigration. I think that's in all the issues.
Yeah, tax law, right? I want to be able to save money on taxes, but I as an attorney, I can't say that I know the ins and outs of tax law and I can benefit from some of the tax loopholes that I'm sure exist out there. We need a specialist, and I guess the technology that you guys have with the AI civic engagement is something that democratizes that process where you can't use the excuse that it's overcomplicated. We have AI that's going to explain it to me exactly as I need.
Yeah, and design something that's built off of data points, not donors, which has traditionally been what a lot of things are built on. You know, one thing that's really cool on the Patriot Party website, before we built the public-facing part of the software, I had it on my phone. It's a lot easier to build AI on your phone than to give it to the people. So I had it on my phone for, 6 months before I built it. And one of the really wonderful, the second piece of legislation, all the proof of concept legislation you can see on the patriotparty.us proof of concept legislation pages. There's 9 or 10. There's one to fix the healthcare system and save us $2 trillion a year. All the stress tests have been run. It's being passed around in D.C. There's one to fix gun violence without violating the Constitution, the Second Amendment. There's one to fix immigration, and that's the one I want to tell you about. So that was developed in real time. It's a beautiful story. I was, before mine and my wife's wedding back in March, she wanted to get a cover-up tattoo. So she found the artist that did the vines and stuff she wanted. We went in to get it, and the girl had an accent, a very heavy accent. So my wife, in conversations like, where are you from? She said, Venezuela. So my wife's like, well, how did you get here? And this is the time Venezuela was all up in the news with Trump and all that. And I'm like, oh, goodness, you're in the news. She said, well, when I was 17, 4 years ago, I came to visit my brother. When I was going back, somebody stole my papers in the airport, and I had two choices. I could go home and never come back, or I could claim asylum and never go home. And I said, oh, this is broken. So I pulled out the federal policy producer, and I fed in her situation real time, and it developed legislation on data to fix that part of the immigration system. Real time, while we were there at the tattoo store. And I'm like, how many politicians are at a tattoo store developing what's best for people? And right then, right there, this is a technology that the people need, so they can do it.
Most politicians don't read legislation, don't write legislation. That's what their staff is for. That's what the consultants are for. Do you know, one of the craziest things that I learned is that a lot of the donors and what are they called? The super PACs are the ones that create the legislation and just hand it over to a politician. It's like, put this on the floor for us, right? It's something that's given. It's even the people that we elect aren't putting in the time and the effort to understand, right, and go through the laws of our country.
And that's why we say, this new platform, in 2 clicks you can propose a law, one to create it and one to email it to your representative. And now you've proposed a law in Washington, and you've leveled the playing field. But the thing is, too, that I found, and maybe you have as an attorney, a lot of this legislation, because they're trying to appease everyone, by the time they finish, they don't end up with an enforceable piece of legislation that can do anything.
So giving people access to legislation is one of the important things you said, is like leveling the playing field with those major donors. So when you have money in politics, you want to make sure that it doesn't have an outside influence on the politicians. And so when you allow people to suggest legislation, to understand legislation, that outsized impact shouldn't exist anymore, right? We want our politicians to listen to us, not their biggest donor.
Well, and two, this legislation cannot be developed. It won't develop unconstitutional legislation. So the reason I even trained the AI, this software even exists, is because I came up with the idea back, I don't know, it was the end of last year, September, whatever, to propose a constitutional quality control board, a nonpartisan constitutional quality control board. I didn't know anything about writing legislation, so I designed my AI to do it. And then once I did, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then we had a guest on for Fixing America, a series we were doing. And he was supposed to come on and talk about how theoretically to fix some. Well, he had the data points to fix the healthcare system. So I plugged it in and it popped out the legislation. I was like, oh, we need to give this to the people. And that's
how simple it is. That's how simple it is. Right? And we just got to force our politicians to, we are making these decisions. Even when it comes to like voting in a booth, right? We, in the future, we can think of the idea of like, oh, there's an AI in your voting booth that can like explain to you legislation if you need more explanation. Because I would say there's a lot of times when ballot votes are written in a way that confuse people and are not like straightforward, and so that can confuse people. And so having AI in the booth before you go in, all of these things are going to help.
Not only that, I believe we could use technology to help design a more secure voting system, because I don't know if you're familiar with Ethereum, the cryptocurrency. It's a decentralized network that you can build platforms on. They're doing something called smart contracts, where they're taking the place of courts because the way they're doing it and validating it on both sides.
Blockchain. Blockchain technology is the verification that kind of comes with the AI stuff. So with that extreme access to intelligence and access to so much data, we also need to verify the data that maybe this AI is going through. And the blockchain is the layer of protection that we can use because it's verifiable. And that's the great thing about the technology. And
it allows us to host the technology as it gets bigger, so we don't have to pay for have all these hosting centers where all these people's data is stored in one place, and at a bigger risk is spread out and a lot less hackable. So that's actually, we have an orchestration layer designed as we build the civic technology to be able to plug and play different blockchains as well, because all the way we're designing this is with something called modular orchestration. So instead of having an agent reinvent the wheel, which leads to drift and hallucinations, we are using modular intelligence and sending it in, so we're not reinventing the wheel every time. We're not having to pay for that compute. So these AI generations, guess what we have our cost down to on our pilot program per legislation?
Yeah, how much per total?
1/15 of 1 cent. That means we can give 1 million people for $1,500. That means we'll save $10 to $20 billion for the American people, because previously this would have cost $10,000, $20,000 if you knew the right people. Most people didn't know the right people. Now with the click of a button, we can give it to 1 million people for 1/10 of the cost of one.
Mm-hmm. No, that's crazy. And this is what we need going forward in regards to making sure everybody understands the civic process and is engaged with it.
Absolutely. So let's get back. Let's get to the next question, because I think this is going to get really into something good. So you have proposed reforming the employment-based green card system by revising the 7% country cap. What problem does that policy create, and what practical solution would you recommend instead?
Okay, so the 7% cap, just to clarify what it is that under current legislation, every country has a certain number of visas they're given, and it's capped at 7% of the total number of visas. So every year there's I believe around 120,000 discretionary visas. This is different than family-based. So family-based visas do not have a cap because they just don't. The legislation doesn't include a cap for spouses, children, family members. There's no cap. But when it comes to other types of immigration, like employment, there is a cap. And so I guess that's kind of the main issue, is that this prioritizes family connections. So there was a system in its initiation prioritized family-based immigration. And this is what, it's popularly described on the right as chain migration, right? And that's what it basically is. It's, family to family to family, and that's what it is. But employment-based immigration, like I said, it's a 7% cap. And that ends up impacting countries with very high population. So countries like China, India, Mexico, Philippines, when you look at when they're eligible to get a visa to come to the United States, it's capped. And so people who, someone like something as simple as this, someone from Pakistan can get something called a National Interest Waiver visa, an EB-2. So with the employment-based system, there's tiers. The top tier is EB-1, EB-2 is the second tier, EB-3. Those are the most popular employment-based immigration. And so let's say you're tier 2, which means you have exceptional ability, right? And that's how they describe it, exceptional ability. If you're from Pakistan, you can get this exceptional ability visa and come to the United States on a visa and have a green card and be a resident in the United States, let's say in the next 2 years. But let's say you're just across the border in India and you have that same description as a person with exceptional ability, but because the population of India is so high, the number of people who apply for this visa is a lot more. And so they aren't allowed to come to the United States. So that puts a backlog. And so right now, there is about 2 million Indians in a backlog working in the United States who have eligibility to get a visa. They're eligible, but their time in the line hasn't come yet. And so this discrepancy, this issue where, people are restricted to come to the United States because of the population of their country, not taking into consideration that the benefit that they're providing to the United States.
Well, or the difference in the size pool. I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to do a structure kind of like the electoral colleges, where everybody gets certain amount of, but the ones that have more of a population get more of those visas depending on.
Yeah, it's like proportional. Like if it
yes,
was proportional.
proportion numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's been different options. Proportionality is a good one, where the number of visas are based off of the size of the population. But also you got to understand that this legislation, this cap, was built. So our modern immigration system, built in the 1950s and then in the 1990s, right? There was a 40-year gap between the 50s and the 90s where there was major immigration reform. There's been little things that happen in between, but major immigration reform in the 50s after World War II, and then in the 90s. And that system was created in a certain time period, right, in a certain context. So post-World War II, United States needed a labor force, people were interested in immigration, and the United States was growing economically, and so they opened up immigration a lot more than in the past, right? Before the 1950s, immigration to the United States was restricted to white men from mostly Northern Europe, right? That's kind of how it was restricted. Afterwards, it kind of opened up to anybody that was considered white. Actually, you mentioned that your grandmother from Lebanon, right? There's case law that exists that reached the Supreme Court that Syrians, which Bilad al-Sham, so Syrians, Lebanese, Palestinians, Jordanians, that were Christian, were classified as white, which allowed them to become citizens and to become permanent residents. And
yeah, so they changed the names. A lot of them who had those Middle East, like my grandmother, I don't even know what her name was because they changed it when she came. Her and her sister when she came in the country, and she was Christian. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how it was defined. That was the system that was there. We're not gonna currently make any judgment on it. That's just the way the system was.
So you're saying it's outdated?
I'm saying that we live in a context where after the 1950s, the country cap was created to restrict immigration. It was a restriction mechanism. It was meant to restrict people from certain countries because they, right, the restriction methods, I know that some people don't like them because, we shouldn't restrict people, we shouldn't push people back, but as a country, Restrictions are kind of the border of what we want to allow, right? Like one of these things that I always ask younger people, like, what kind of country do you want? What kind of people do you want in your country, right? And it's good to think about these things. Do you want your neighbor to be a criminal? Of course not. So we don't want immigrants who are criminals, right? That's like a basic thing. But it goes further than that, right? It goes further in terms of from what country do you want people to come from, right? What culture, what background? And one of the things that I'm trying to advocate for is that I think America, like, there is an American man, there is an American culture, and I think there is there's an undercurrent of people in the United States trying to continuously attach to their former immigrant history. So, and especially when it comes to white Americans, right? There are still white Americans. I'm a Scots-Irish, I'm German. So even amongst the white population in the United States, there is still referring back to their former immigrant homeland. But what I'm advocating for is, like, come on, guys, we're all American. There is an American ethos. There's an American ideal that is different from the places that we came from. And the reason that we're in the United States is because we love the United States. And I think that's what we need to focus on, is that we love America, and we want America to be the best country in the world, and we all got to work together to do that. And one of the biggest places that we have issues right now is immigration. It is broken. It's collapsed.
Well, let me ask you something, because, I mean, it seems to me to be a trend, and I don't want to go into political parties, but I'm going to talk about all parties. It seems like almost that they'd rather leave it as a talking point to get elected on than something they really want to fix.
I would say that is how politicians get elected, because the hard work of actually getting legislation that is agreed upon, there's consensus over. Like, I think, for example, like, I primarily like to practice in employment-based immigration. I think there's a lot of things that we can do in employment-based immigration that will benefit this country. Like, we need people of extraordinary ability. We need people who have exceptional ability. These are, like, the way that they're described. But we need these people in the United States. But also, I think we kind of give a lot of false hope in the United States when it comes to the immigration system for temporary employment. So I'm sure you've heard about, like, the H-1B system. Completely broken, right? And the reason that it's broken is that it gives the hope of permanent residence in the United States. People, it gives them, like, the possibility, and they want to strive for that possibility. So how does the H-1B work, right? H-1B is you have to be a skilled worker working in certain industries, and there has to be a labor certification done. There's like the Department of Labor is involved, and the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, and it's supposed to ensure that there's no Americans losing jobs. But what ends up happening is that these individuals get stuck in these systems. The big businesses end up used to using these types of contract workers or hiring H-1B employees. But then it's using them for the labor, but it's also giving them a false promise of, okay, if you work for us, we'll do an immigrant petition for you. Like, that's how, like, about 2 million Indians got into this position, where they studied in the United States. They, paid at our universities. They got hired at companies for an H-1B, and they ended up working at that company for 3 years. H-1B is only renewable twice, unless, right, and this is the thing that kind of gives them the false hope, is that H-1B is only renewable twice, so maximum of 6 years, unless you have an immigrant visa pending. And so, what did I just say? The immigrant visas for India, China, Mexico, for some of these high population countries, the wait times are in the decades. And so you have, like, okay, we're going to have you work here temporarily, but you can eventually immigrate in the next 10 years. And so it just makes no sense. Like, it just completely collapses. You have children born here, children that live, like, one of the craziest situations. A client I have in Dallas, he has been working in the United States for about 12 years. His son came here when he was 6. He just graduated, is going to go to college. After the age of 18, these children get kicked out of their parents' immigration documents, right? So this child that was here with his father, because the father had H-1B, now has to figure out a new type of status because he can't attach himself with his father anymore. And so you create these predicaments, you create these situations that put people that don't know how to deal with the situation, and it's a real, and it just creates incentives for bad behavior.
Well,
And that's kind of the thing that I want to avoid, right? We don't want people staying on H-1B and then being like, man, I've been paying taxes, I've been living here, I'm just gonna be here without authorization. I'm just gonna work under the table. I'm just gonna, because you get distraught by the legal immigration system because you don't think the legal immigration system is working for you.
Well, and it's not just people like that. Let me give you an example of a family member, or two. My uncle, he started with Panasonic. He lived in England. I have a lot of family. My dad's family's from England. And he started with Panasonic in the beginning. So he was vice president of Panasonic, and his wife was real high up in Panasonic. He always wanted to move to America. He retired from Panasonic very well off, him and his wife. They tried to move to America. They hired an immigration attorney. They fought for 5 years and said, we'll come to America and open a business. Finally, they said, no, we're going to move to Spain because they tried 5 years. And this is somebody who is offering to open a business in America and bring millions of dollars to America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing, like the EB-5, like investment-based. There's a complete collapse. I know Trump tried with the gold card and the platinum card to try to bring investment to the United States, but those also didn't really make much impact, right?
What about a merit-based? I'm all about merit-based. A lot of legislation.
That's kind of my focus. Right?
Well, if you look on the legislation page, a lot of the legislation has a merit base. That's what I'm all about. So with the modern technology, we could literally pick up patterns and stuff. So what if we had like a rolling or some kind of rotating thing where you come in on a temporary, your probationary period. You have to enter in everything you're doing. It's got to be validated. And after a certain amount of positive things you do for this country, you get to become a citizen because actions speak louder than words.
100% agree. I would say that we actually can learn a lot from our neighbors, our cousins, English cousins, so we got Canada, Australia, New Zealand that have very different immigration systems. So they use a point-based system. So if you have certain qualifications, if you have certain merit points, those are calculated in your favor. And the reason that I advocate for something like a point system is because it's not as arbitrary. Right, so right now, there's like this big battle in the upper level immigration, the extraordinary ability, over what is the standard, what is the law behind it. Right now, it's defined by this case called Kazarian, and there's like so much back and forth about what is the actual law, right? So there's even, that's another funny thing is that there's disputes about what the law actually is, actively. In the immigration system, there's so much litigation around it.
Yeah, and a lot of it's probably theory and stuff that actually doesn't transcend into actions. I'm speaking on actions, like what are you doing right now? What have you done today? What did you do yesterday? Does that qualify, or are you going to become a citizen?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let me ask you, how can the United States modernize its legal immigration system in a way that strengthens our economy, remains competitive globally, and still upholds the rule of law?
So, I think right now, there needs to be a distinction between criminalizing someone and recognizing that they've broken the law. Right? Criminalizing illegality in certain situations, if it's a criminal act, I would completely agree with. But I think one of the major issues that we are dealing with right now is criminalizing illegal immigration, right? There are currently, illegal immigration is a civil issue, right? But the way that we see it being enforced, I think no one's going to dispute that it looks a little bit criminal. They're treating illegal immigrants as criminals. But even in the letter of the law, it's not a criminal issue. It might be in some states. but federally, it's illegal presence in the United States is a civil issue. And so I think that is the biggest thing that I think we should probably focus on, because even on the far left, they say, oh, no human is illegal, right? And I understand where they're coming from, and I understand the right's desire to enforce laws and make sure all laws are kept, right? I'm an attorney. I think that laws are important to be upheld. Sorry about that. The judge wants me to go into court a little early. I told him I can't. But it's all good. So, I'm gonna go start off where I'm gonna go back to where I was. So humans. So the sentiment that humans aren't illegal, right? That comes from that. That's a very empathetical sentiment, and we can talk. I don't like to get into detail about politics. I just like to talk about how people feel and where they're coming from. Like, I think understanding is important, not necessarily agreeing. Right? I can understand where you're coming from. I don't have to agree because I understand. It just allows me to create a better conversation. Right? So I understand also the rights positioning is that we want to make sure laws are enforced. We don't want people to break our laws. Right? And so I think there is a middle ground there where the way that we treat illegality doesn't need to be criminal. And I think that's the type of nuance that political discussion needs. When we see masked, armed enforcers of immigration, that makes people very uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, in most people's minds, I don't think illegality is criminal. Right? People don't feel that because someone isn't a citizen, doesn't have the same civil rights that I do, is a criminal. Right? We might say that they're doing something wrong. They shouldn't have the same privileges as I do. They shouldn't be able to vote. They shouldn't be able, there are certain restrictions that I would advocate for in this type of situation, is that they shouldn't get some of the benefits of a citizen. Right, and that's the extent of it, and we could criminalize crimes, but in this situation, I feel like you have something to.
Well, first I want to say something. I want to bring it back to you were talking about the other side, and it's good to understand. And yes, that's absolutely we want to understand every side. We say our mission is not persuasion, it's understanding. Mm-hmm. But one of the big things I think, and I believe that it's. Part of it is the polarization of the media, is that we're all starting from a different fact base. You got one side that says 10 million immigrants are coming in. You got another side that says no immigrants are coming in. So we're looking at a whole different, scenario. If one thinks none and another thinks 10 million, how can we even have a conversation?
No, I agree about the data and the facts. What is the reality of the situation? If we can't have a consensus about reality, then how can we go forward? And I think AI is a great tool to explain these things. There's probably a lot of data that needs to be sifted through, but when it comes to the idea about the reality, what is the reality of the situation currently in the United States when it comes to immigration? Is it as bad as it's described? Is it as not important or not as big of an issue as others say? And again, I think always the middle path is usually the best path, right? That's something philosophers have been telling us for millennia. The middle path.
Yes.
Both sides have a valid understanding and perspective, but it's not to that extent, right? Immigration is not destroying the culture of the United States. Immigration is the culture of the United States, right?
Yeah.
It's not degrading its ideals or its culture. That is its culture, right? And I think that might be difficult for. I think that might be difficult for people to understand who that find themselves in places that don't have the diversity that America is in reality, right? When it comes to demographics, the United States has been shifting, has always shifted, and it's always been impacted by demographic changes since its inception. And so the demography isn't the point with the United States, and I think that's an important fact to consider, is that America isn't its demography, it's culture and its ideals.
Yeah, and you said something good about AI. We found AI is wonderful to help when human emotions muddy the water. Now, human emotions are a great thing for some things. I don't think they're a good thing for the rule of law. I don't think human emotions need to be in the rule of law. And they're wonderful AI is wonderful to take out those human emotions and point, like we have ours programmed to not take capitalism out, but to make money a means to an end, not the end. So we reinvest in society. So we run these business decisions through and have it, point out where we're being human and where we may not, where we may, because humans are going to be greedy. We are. We're going to try to make as much money as possible. We're going to try to make we're not going to, by nature, not be greedy. So the things that we don't do well, it can help buffer up and give us those facts. One thing I want to ask though, so are you saying that what needs to happen is maybe if somebody's in this country illegally, that the illegal part doesn't need to be criminalized per se against them to kick them out? Maybe if they committed a crime and they're in this country illegally, but not just being here?
Exactly. Illegality there needs to be criminalization of the illegality, right? That's another step, right? That is and I would say it's a very intrusive step. I was actually talking to someone so local government, right? Local government is extremely important, and I think it's one of the most important things about the ethos of the United States. We don't want a king somewhere else telling us what to do. We have our local town, city, state government that we, at a closer range, can impact. One of the things that I consider a betrayal of my local government is cooperation between local police and federal police. And why do I say that? Let me tell you why I think it's a betrayal. Because the local police is meant to represent the local populace, right? But we have something here in Florida that it's more being forced upon. I'm here in Tampa, Florida. Governor DeSantis has done some good things, some horrible things. One of the things that he's done is trying to force local government to cooperate with the federal government to identify and provide and hand over people who are illegal to the federal government. I would say about 20 years ago, this would not have been popular on the right, because the reason is that this is an intrusion and a expansion of rights and control by the federal government into the local state police decisions. And so it's overreaching. If the local police want to make that decision, let the local police make that decision. It's not something that should be forced upon them. And so the reason I bring it up is because I would say 90% of my clients that I work with that are in detention are through minor traffic infractions. What do I say? You're speeding, you didn't have a license, or you had a suspended license. Those three things, like minor driving infractions. I'm not going to bring up DUIs. DUIs are bad. I don't like, that's something separate. What I'm saying are minor traffic infractions. And this causes them to get caught up in another system, right? And the reason I say that the illegal, I'm only using this term, illegal people in the United States, that they're here unlawful presence. The only reason that they're in this new system that's criminalizing them, right? And what do I mean by criminalizing them? It's treating them as if they are criminals that need to be punished. Criminality comes with punitive. It's punitive. And punitive, you're going to be detained. You're going to be detained for God knows how long, right? Depending on the person, you can get a speeding ticket and be detained for the next 6 months, right? I feel like that's crazy, right? If you got a speeding ticket, you pay a fine. I've never seen someone go to jail for a speeding ticket, so, right? But it's taking it to the next level where you're criminalizing people for this. And I kind of want to get back to something you said when it comes to the rule of law, there are no emotions. I think the most important thing that we've learned as humans that mercy is the most important thing that differentiates us and makes us a higher animal, right? Mercy is our ability to understand that, yes, you deserve this, but you can reform, right? You can be better. You can change yourself. And mercy is extremely important. I think this is a tradition that, we have from all our sages, right? Like, mercy is equal to the law. And it's in our system too. Like, there's equity courts. Even when judges make decisions, mercy and equity, it's usually equity, is considered.
Yeah, I mean, emotions can fuel the outcome of the law, but the actual law itself, I don't believe, has any room for emotions. The statutes, the legislation, those kind of things. Now, we want to give mercy, we want to give equal treatment, no cruel and unusual punishment. Those can all be things that drive the law, but I think the laws themselves and the way they're worded don't need to have any emotions. Maybe you think differently, I don't know.
No, so laws are code for how to use a system. That's kind of how I understand law and governance. It's just how we've decided to create the system around us. I think when people come into the scenario, like judges are the place where mercy comes in, and we see that all the time. Like, you see, even in immigration court, I've been in situations where immigration judges are like, no, I really don't think this person needs to be detained. Let's set a bond, and you guys can just monitor him while he's outside, right?
Yeah.
Mercy comes in at that point when a person is involved. But what I'm worried about is the culture of non-mercy. And
I want to expound on that, actually. You're talking, because I kind of railed on it back when this was just a podcast, and before it was like a solutions-based interview show. I used to do a weekly news show, and I remember reporting on the deporting and how they were deporting people that had been here 20 years, had businesses, paid taxes, how they were locking them up, and people were like, well, they're criminals. And I'm like, we're deporting in reverse. Why aren't we getting out all these people that were supposedly living off the government, and the people that are helping the country, we give them a pathway to stay? I mean, why are we going after these people who have been helping the country for years and acting like they're criminals? We're deporting in reverse.
Yeah, and that's actually what is happening. Their system is prioritizing the silly mistakes rather than the actual problems, right? When you're driving without a license, like, you're just making a silly mistake. You're punishing the people who are trying to get by.
But don't you think it's about numbers? It's not even about the mistake. It's just right now they're trying to make their constituents happy by getting the numbers.
Optics. It's optics.
Yeah,
it's
optics.
optics. There's an election coming up. You want to make sure that you got the biggest numbers, and that your side doesn't feel betrayed, or your side knows that you did what you promised you were going to do. It's just numbers. It has there's no depth to it.
And then on the numbers, a lot of times we don't even get the full context of numbers. You might get, whoa, COVID cases have gone up by 50%, but you don't know it's gone from 2 to 3. We want the whole narrative. It don't matter if it's only 1 in 330 million.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly, and that's why, again, AI helps with that, understanding the information, because humans also can try to deceive you, and that deception can come in from framing. And
I don't even think it's intentional. They just want to put their spin and their perspective naturally in it to make it theirs, and then it becomes subjective instead of objective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, let me ask you, your upcoming memoir, why do you believe, belonging is such an important part of becoming an American, and what do you hope readers take away from your story?
I think belonging is important for you as an individual. It's part of personal growth, and that's why I think it's extremely important. But also, it's important for the nation for civic engagement, right? We want, we don't have mandatory service like some countries. We don't have mandatory volunteering, right, like some countries. I think that, but we still have to be active and involved in developing our connection to our nation and our community. And I think it's important, and that's why I'm advocating for this. And when it comes to readers, I'm actually expecting most of the readers to be like me, child of immigrants, people of maybe Arab or Muslim background, but also maybe people who want to learn more about people like me. So both of those readers. First, I want people who are like me to know that it's possible, that you can go down this path, you can have this type of background but still reach this goal. And then I want others who are not like me to empathize, right? I want them to understand this is the process that millions of people are going through, and I want you to understand it better. I want to inform you about it.
Let me ask you, you probably got a little more experience than me with this, but I've noticed that a lot of times the immigrants are more patriotic than the people that have lived here their whole life, because people that lived here take it for granted.
Yeah, because it means something, right?
Yeah.
I have cousins, it has more value because you can compare it, right? And I think that comparison is what makes like immigrants and the children of immigrants attached to the United States so much. Is because you guys don't know what you have. You don't realize the gold that you're sitting on, and you're taking it for granted. But no, for us, it's like I had to leave. You know, my parents fled persecution. My grandma fled persecution, fled horrible economic conditions and bad governance and oppression and bad infrastructure. Right? There's so many problems. Right?
Yeah.
But you compare it to the United States, and you have great education. You have opportunity. If you work hard enough, you can get somewhere. Merit is important here, and you can be recognized for who you are and how hard you work. These are things that you can find everywhere in the world.
Plus, you're a part of, if you look at it from the founding, the Constitution was the first document in history that said all men are created equal, and the Constitution was literally the catalyst for getting rid of slavery worldwide. You know, that was what started the movement of getting rid of it. So, you know, the whole thing about this is the Constitution is a racist document or whatever. No, you have to read the 3/5 thing. If you look at it, it was a power play by the northern states to eventually get less power from the southern states so they could get rid of slavery. The southern states wanted 5/5. They wanted more representation so they could have more power.
Yeah, so they could use the representation
Yes.
of the people who had no say, right? So they didn't have a voice in the politics. We're just going to control it. And so, yes, of course. Yeah.
We've been made to believe the Constitution is bad. The Constitution is our document. That's why it says we the people. It's our document.
And we can change it. That's what amendments are for, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about the Constitution. It's a living document. We can understand the context from which it came from. We can understand the position and the understanding of the people who drafted it and the ideals that they had in mind, right? Ideals are reflected in the language of the people at that time.
Yes.
And I think we have the same ideals, and we need to reflect them based off of our times.
Yes, and you know, and that's one of the things that I say. I believe, you know, you got people that believe in originalists, you know, where it shouldn't change. You got people that believe in living, which I haven't read anywhere that says people should subjectively be able to interpret it at will. But I believe in a hybrid. I call it structured life, because if it's not living, it dies. What I believe is at some point we need to call a state constitutional convention, and we need to define Article 5 so we have a way that's not ambiguous to call constitutional conventions. So it's structured life.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if this happened. That's actually I expect things like this to happen in the future because we are reaching, you know, political maximums and in the politics and in the culture. And I think something dramatic like that is in store for us.
That's actually what we're pushing behind. We got a guest coming on Wednesday. I think he's a big attorney and historian, and he's gotten behind trying to push for a convention every 40 years. He's known for that. We're going to bring him on and talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I believe that maybe not this generation, maybe the next. I don't know. I mean, I've said many a times, I know I'm starting something that hopefully I can hand off, because this is a non-violent generational reset that needs to pull us back on alignment and move forward, you know, with the next generations. And that's, you know, with the education. When it's fully implemented, we'll learn what students learn best from, and it will evolve. The curriculum evolves because society evolves on what their values are and what they can relate to best.
Yeah, and what they've built, right? The crazy thing about humans is we build on our past. We keep building. It's not something, we don't start all over again. And that's, you know, one of the big things that actually mammalians have different is that we grow, we connect, have community relationships, and we build. Like, I don't have to know how to build a house, but, you know, because I'm in a community, because I'm in a culture, someone else can do it, and we can have that type of relationship.
You know, it's funny you say that, because a lot of times, by watching the news or even some day-to-day actions, I mean, I view those as data points. I don't view them as this is what society is, because if I viewed these little independent data points as this is what we are, I'd never be building anything. I view humanity as a society, as a wonderful thing, as one, not little outliers. And we come together, we innovate. We're wonderful as one, and that's why I build what I build.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a verse in the Quran that says God created you into tribes and nations to get to know each other. Like the reason that we're different is so we can have diversity to get to know each other. Honestly, one of the greatest experiences is getting to know someone from another culture, right? It's getting to know someone's food, getting to know someone's language, and how they get married. I think marriage traditions are one of the most interesting things people do. Like, oh, what is the process of getting married? And I think, that's what America has that no one else in the world has, right? We have all of this diversity. All we need is just want to get to know each other. We don't have to agree with each other. I'm not saying agree. We're not supposed to agree. We just gotta get to know each other. Let's sit down, let's talk, because you can't really have an enemy that you break bread with.
No, and I think diversity is our strength. We just need to step back and start critically thinking a little bit more and analyzing, and not just knee-jerking with emotion. Process. Yes.
We need to make sure we agree with the process. And again, that takes us back to the laws and what the process is right now. I think, everyone's, politics is downstream from culture. Culture is usually a couple steps ahead. And that's true. And I do think the culture wants us to get to know each other and talk. But the politics is a little behind.
Yes, and our platform is trying to bring people together. We literally say we don't have the answers. We're building the pot, the people's pot. The American people will decide what to sprinkle in.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. And as far as the politics, one of the things that really opened my eyes, my daughter, or one of my daughters, she's her husband's stationed outside of San Francisco, where she's an artist. So I flew out there to see her and helped her set up at some art festivals. It's a whole bunch of liberal people. I'm from Louisiana. It's very red. A whole bunch of liberal art people. And I was talking to them about what we're doing, the Constitution, the Patriot Party, and they were loving it. And they're like, you know what? We really wish that we could just come together and agree to disagree, because we agree on a lot of stuff. We just disagree on some things. And I'm like, really? Because that's what we're pushing for. It's not as bad as what the media makes it out.
It's not. It's only the people who benefit politically and monetarily who want to exacerbate all of this tension. It's only the people who benefit, but in the reality, the people on the ground, it's not like that.
I mean, it's part of the status quo. I mean, there's control and chaos, right? If we don't come together, there's control.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly.
Let me ask you this: if Congress gave you the opportunity, no, they already got that. Okay, if there's one message you hope Americans across the political spectrum take away from this conversation, what would it be?
That we as humans are in this process together, and that we belong together in this process, and we can do it together.
Yeah, and that goes into something that I've said. A lot of people, they're rejecting AI, and I'm like, okay, well, trillions of dollars are being spent worldwide, so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we have two choices. We can either let a small group dictate what happens, like has been being done, or the people can demand a seat at the table, and that's what we need to do. Says it all. Says it all. If you'll hang around for a second while I wrap this up, we can chat just for a few minutes after I wrap this up. All right. Mohammad, thank you for joining us and for sharing both your family's journey and your professional perspective on America's immigration system. Conversations like this are important, Because immigration is too often reduced to partisan slogans when the real issues involve law, opportunity, national interest, fairness, and the lives of people trying to build a future through the legal process. Whether someone agrees with every proposed reform or not, we should be able to examine the system honestly, understand its consequences, and search for solutions that uphold the rule of law while strengthening the country. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us. Continue asking questions, examining the evidence, and thinking independently. Because truth isn't partisan, it's patriotic.